But the very first stage is learning the principles of maximizing your exchange of time for money. That's the very first principle. And then before I show you this, I'll just tell you, the average chiropractor that sees 100 visits a week loses about $250,000 a year. Loses. How does that happen? Well, if the potential's 200 and the doctor's seeing 100, but the potential's 100, that's 100 visits a week. And that's what I found. The average doctor emotionally, physically can see about 180 to 220 visits a week. The national average is 107. So you take 100 visits a week, multiply that times $50 per visit. That's the national average. That's $5,000 a week that they're not producing, but you're in the space, labor, equipment, you're paying the overhead. That's that much money that's just being wasted. That's not even being produced. $5,000 a week, 52 weeks, 5 times 5 is 25. That's over $250,000 that you could be making that you're not, because you have the factory, you have the space, you got the labor, you got the equipment. So having said that, let me go very specifically, and we're going to pay a lot of attention to these categories. So let me pop them up. So there's 7 levels to growing a practice until you maximize your time for money. There's only 4 profit centers in any business of exchanging time for money. It's not just chiropractic. In any business, it's repeat purchases. In chiropractic, it's called patient retention. It's new business. That's marketing, new patients. What's your overhead and what are your fees? Those are the 4 factors that will determine your profit margin. Can you max out each of those 4 categories? That's when you'll maximize your exchange of time for money. Then you have to go to a total different system to start leveraging time and money. So there's the 4 profit centers. We're going to pay a lot of attention to this. Chiropractors are typically really bad at marketing, really bad. They don't understand the S-curve of economics at all, and they typically violate it all the time. You'll see that's why the chiropractic profession is stuck at 8% utilization after 120 plus years. Now, once you know the S-curve of economics, it's not going to matter. And you're actually going to be thankful it's 8%, because it means you got a hell of an opportunity that 97% of the chiropractors don't have, which means you got no competition in that arena. That's what that means. Horizontal, vertical fee structure, we'll pay attention to that. And overhead, there's 10 major reasons why you'll have higher overhead. We're going to pay attention to that. So that's what's going to create your profit. Then we're going to define limiting growth. What creates limiting growth? How do you know when you're limiting growth? Well, number one, when patients are waiting. As soon as patients are waiting at any station, you just capped your growth. Now, how long they wait, that even gets to be more of an issue. So you've capped your growth as soon as anybody waits at any one station. So we pay a lot of attention to space, labor, and equipment, because that will be one of the 2 reasons that'll create limiting growth. Statistics compared to the national average. We're going to pay a lot of attention to statistics. What's normal? I had a client one time seeing 60 visits a week. He thought it was normal. You know why he thought it was normal? Because he hung around friends that were seeing 60 visits a week. He was 40% under average. Now, he was a good guy, good doctor. He sucked at business. But he didn't know any better because he didn't pay attention to statistics, and he hung around other guys that sucked. He didn't even know it until I told him. By the way, he increased his business over $100,000 in 90 days. And a lot of you guys, this is what's going to happen as soon as we start kicking in some of this. So that's how we're going to know if it stops. So the types of chiropractic business models, there's many business models. There's the symptom practice, the subluxation, chiropractic biophysics, science of the 3 phases of healing, functional capacity, homeopathy, weight loss, disc decompression, neuropathy, functional medicine. Well, guess what? It doesn't matter which model that is, the principles of patient retention stay the same. Doesn't matter which model you pick. The principles of why I keep buying something stays the same. So we're going to pay attention to this. And you can't jump around from model to model. You actually have to be good at something. We're going to evaluate your space. That's why we want the videos. Do you actually have the ability? Does your factory have the ability to produce the cars? So we'll pay attention to your space. That includes layout, your labor, who's doing what, where, and when. We'll pay attention to your equipment. You can't have one piece of equipment and expect to grow your practice. It's funny. That's a big thing in chiropractic right now. People are buying machines because they think it's going to get a new business. They didn't know marketing in the first place. So they have one machine, and if anybody else wants it, they're waiting. And now they stop the growth of their practice because people are waiting to get on that one machine. The insanity is unbelievable in this profession. We're going to pay attention to doctor knowledge. I'd say the number one and number two reason chiropractors do not max out and make as much money as they want is number 4 and number 5. They just don't know, and they don't have the skill. That's easily, overwhelmingly the biggest of the problems. Number 6 gets to be a problem when you start making a decent amount of money. That kills motivation. And number 7 is human resources and systems. A lot of times I'll do an evaluation, and we'll do it with you, like with your marketing. I'm going to ask I want you to list your marketing systems. Now, what does that system mean? It means there's somebody that's been designated to do it. They're trained to do it. They keep statistics and they're doing it. That's a system. Not maybe, kind of, sort of. Well, I think she did last week. That's not a system. We're going to pay attention to that. So we're going to know all this through statistics. When we finish looking at you, your space, labor, and equipment, and your statistics, we're going to know exactly your weakest link and what's stopping you from going to the next level. And we're going to be able to change it pretty fast for the most part, if we have a doctor with a good attitude. If you don't have a good attitude, there's not a damn thing I can do for you. Zero. We have to learn the basics of the S-curve of economics. That's where the gold is at, understanding the S-curve of economics. If you don't understand that, it's going to be difficult to reach what you want in life. So level one, I've identified between 0 and 40 patient visits a week. That's typically the first stopgap. Now, I've listed there the common primary limiting factors. There's typically 7: space, labor, equipment, knowledge, skill, motivation. And just to give you an example, is space typically a problem when you start a practice? No. Is labor? No. You can see 4 or 5 patients on your own. You don't need staff. Is equipment? No. Is knowledge? Hell yeah. Skill? Hell yeah. Do we need to motivate somebody who's starting a practice to pay for his survival and his mortgage? Hell no. If you do, you got the wrong person in the wrong profession. Number 7, human resources, hire, train, hire, and manage. These are you're going to see when we look at your statistics, your building, it's going to be one of these are going to be your primary limiting factor. And until that changes, nothing else is going to change. So that's a simple example. Another stopgap that I found is between 60 and 80 patient visits. A lot of times it's knowledge, skill, motivation, and HR systems. Typically, you still have space, labor, and equipment and motivation. Those typically are not the issues. They can be, but typically not. I'm being very general now. But when we actually look at you, your facility, and your statistics, there will not be guessing. You may not like it, but there will not be guessing. We will damn well know what to do. Whether you're willing to do it to go to the next level, that's going to be the question. And we'll know exactly how to take you through the 4 stages of training to get you from point A to point B. We know exactly how to do that. What's the only factor that's going to limit you from obtaining what you want when you're dealing with me? You just don't want to. You got a crappy attitude, or you just don't want to. But the golden brick road and holding your hand is coming your way. Number three, this is a real common area doctors putz out at around 100, 120 visits. A lot of times the motivation goes to hell in here. There's a lot of times they can have some of these other factors. Usually when doctors start making $150,000 a year, depending on where they live and if they're married and if their wife, usually motivation goes to hell here. And 130 to 150 visits, usually that's a labor, equipment, could be a motivation problem or an HR systems problem. But to get to this point, you did have to know something. If you're seeing 130 and 150, you have to know something. You're not a putz. You know something if you're there. You definitely know something to get there with 8% utilization. And a lot of doctors get stuck right here. And this is usually a lot of leverage problems. Usually, because usually the motivation is more than the average bird. But I'll see, so it could be motivation, and usually it's a lot of systems. They don't have good systems, and they're doing everything themselves. And you can only do so many things before that becomes the limiting factor. So then it goes up to level 6. I've identified that between about 180 and 220 patient visits a week. Usually you got all you need: space, labor, equipment, knowledge, skill, motivation. Again, that's a leverage system. Just knowing how to manage and leverage. That's what that is. And then, of course, to go past that, well, you have to know all the systems. You got to know the S-curve. You got to know all the 4 categories. You got to know all patient retention. You not only have to know them, you have to have the ability, the skill to do them to get to this level. You got to have a higher skill level to get to this level. You got to have higher motivation. You got to have higher skill level. You got to have higher knowledge level. And typically the limiting factor here, the number one that I've said, the doctor doesn't want to let go. He's like a control freak, and he has a real hard time of letting go, training, managing by statistics, and letting go and managing. That's why I have one doctor. He was a total rainmaker. He should not, he lost money by practicing. He had the natural ability just to create patients once he learned how to. And he never could get over it. He never could bring on an associate doctor to leverage off and let them do it. Well, guess what? He still is working in his office today. He has no freedom. He has a limited income and no freedom. He better be investing well with the money he makes to create wealth. He better be, because you're not going to get wealthy in chiropractic. You'll get wealthy investing from the money you make in chiropractic. So that's what I've typically seen. It's unbelievably straightforward. It's very clear when you know how to. So what do I have to do? I've got to get you guys to know this. This is what owners know, not associate doctors. So I'm going to give this to you and talk to you as an owner to do these evaluations, to pinpoint, to put the systems in place and how to train, watch it come up, and then redo the whole process to find the next weakest link. And it's going to be based on personality, your profile, what you want, your motivation. That's where it all starts. Then we're going to look at your space, labor, and equipment. That won't be difficult to deal with. I mean, it definitely can be a limiting factor, and you not even know it. That's for sure. And then we look at statistics, and most people don't like statistics because we don't like to think we're not any good. I like to think I got a little more hair than what I do. It's called the Lake Wobegon effect. We will lie to ourselves. They're called little white lies. And that's why we will not ever listen to your opinion. We will listen to the statistic. Because if the statistic is kept right, it'll never lie. We will always lie to ourselves, and the lie will always be to make it better than what it is. That's why we pay attention to statistics, learn how to keep them, learn how to interpret them, and then learn how to act on them. That's what professionals do.